It's Sophie, think you're the only one doing ground. Men to the beat, I step in line, coming in hard with yours. Hello and welcome to episode 8 of the Maria and Glenn Show.
Hi everyone. It's nice to be able to sit down and have another chat, Maria.
It is.
Because the last couple of times we've been on location at the Scott Monument in Edinburgh and in Dundas Castle. But today we're going to sit down and talk about books. Now, Maria, as you know, I totally love books. I read a lot. You used to love books until you were about 11, and then you've still been reading a little bit, but not so much. So today I'm going to talk to you about 5 books and try and convince you to read one of them. Okay?
Okay.
So before we get into that, what's been going on?
Well, 2 days ago I went back to school for the first time in about 5 months.
Great.
Schools went back and we went into our new school building, which is really nice.
Is it? Tell us about the building.
So it's a lot bigger and much more clean and spacious than the last one, and it's got lots of new features and it's a nice place to be in.
Can you tell me about one of the new features? What about the thing where you wash your hands?
Tell me about the sink. No, you don't have to ask that. I think I just said enough. It's a bit weird.
And Eva went back to school for a short time, for 2 hours.
First time in 2 years.
Which felt like a huge step. That was
Yeah.
amazing. Okay, should we start on the books, Maria? Yeah?
Oh, I thought we already had. Okay, here we go again.
Okay, should we start talking about books?
Okay, no, we're not saying it like that. Say, should we?
So I'm going to talk about one of my favourite books, and at the end of that I want you to rate how likely you are going to read it. Okay, from a scale of 1 to 10.
Okay.
So the first one I want to talk to you about is Agatha Christie, and it's called And Then There Were None. The reason I'm starting with this is when I was a teenager, I was a really good friend, James Armitage, who was an avid reader. I still remember James's phone number, 6625, better not say the rest. And he would pass on all these Agatha Christie books. And this story is fantastic because the premise of the story is that 8 people are invited onto an island under false pretenses, and when they get there they're told that the host won't be with them until the following day. So they all have their meal, and after the meal they hear a pre-recorded message accusing each of them of having separately murdered someone. And what happens over the course of a period of time is that each of them gets murdered on the island. What do you think? That sounds good?
I actually think that sounds really good because I really like murder mystery.
Oh, do you? Right, so on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to read that book? 10 being definitely.
I'm going to go with a solid 8.
8? Right, that's a good score. The next book is called Great Expectations by Charles Dickens, and it's a big one. Right, I've got a lovely copy here, and Great Expectations. The reason I'm mentioning this is
You sound like such a nerd.
do I?
Yeah, and you're not a nerd, so that's what makes me feel slightly uncomfy doing this. Like, Great Expectations by Charles Dickens.
Perhaps we've never talked about this before, darling.
Promise he isn't this uncool in real life. He's just pretending that he is.
I first properly got into literature when I was doing A-levels, so when I was 16, 17, 18. And I had this brilliant English literature teacher called Miss Gaston. That's a terrible name, but she was lovely. She had quite a lot of muckers in her classroom, but they all really loved her because she was kind to them. And I think she totally ignited a love of literature for me. One of the reasons for that is this text, Great Expectations. Now, Maria, you might not know, but I was back then a real planner. Like, I over-prepared stuff. So in my upper 6th year, so the year I was doing my exams, I probably read this book about 4 or 5 times. And it's huge, right? It's about a boy called Pip. It follows his childhood into young adult, and he lives with his sister and a nice man called Joe, who's a poor blacksmith. Now, Pip comes across a lady called Miss Havisham, who I think you'd find her really interesting, because when he first meets her, she is in a wedding dress. She's an old lady, and she's never taken her wedding dress off because she was jilted at the altar so that her fiance didn't turn up.
Oh.
And from that point, she was so bitter. She stopped all the clocks in the house. She just was sitting in her wedding dress, and she had adopted this daughter called Estella. But she basically brought her adopted daughter up to manipulate and be cold towards men. Pip falls under her spell, Estella's spell. He sort of basically falls in love with her. But when I got to the end and read the ending, I thought, I'm not sure about that ending, because it's a brilliant book, and then you get to the end and you're like, oh, I'm not sure it should have been like that. But apparently Charles Dickens' friend called Wilkie Collins, whose book I totally love, he convinced him to try to change the ending. I'm not sure that was a good idea. Anyway, what do you think? Charles Dickens, it's big. Do you want to see what are you thinking about that?
I don't know. I just think it sounds quite boring and big.
Boring and big, right. So what number would you give it?
4.
4?
What?
Something white on your lips.
It's lip gloss.
Okay, Maria. On to my favourite book of all time, which is The Woman in White. This is fantastic. It's brilliant. It's by Wilkie Collins, who I said was friends with Charles Dickens, which in itself is very cool. And it was written in 1859. I've just realised all the books I'm talking about seem to be in mid-1800s.
Old
Quite
ones.
old ones. Right, but still, they're amazing.
Still makes them sound boring. Otherwise,
right,
not.
but the good thing about this is it's probably one of the first ever mystery detective novels ever written. But one of the best scenes in the book, first of all, was about the main character, Walter Hartwright, when he met a ghostly figure late at night, which is the woman in white. And I'll read you a little bit. It says, a solitary woman dressed from head to foot in white garments, her face bent in grave inquiry on mine, her hand pointing to the dark cloud over London as I faced her. So he meets this woman in white, and he accompanies her to London. So they walk together to London. He helps her get a cab at that point, and then shortly after, a policeman comes up and says, have you seen a woman in white? She's escaped from the asylum. So that's mysterious. Then he goes to his new job. He falls in love with a lady called Laura, and he notices that the more they fall in love with, the sadder Laura gets. And the reason she's sad is because on her father's deathbed, she promised to marry someone else. And despite getting a letter warning her from marrying this other man, she goes ahead and marries him because she's promised her dad. And then all sorts of mysterious and crazy things starts happening. It's really exciting. It's very well written, and I totally love it.
I think it sounds good. Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of old-fashioned books, but normally they're all really well written. So
yeah,
I think I probably maybe would give it a go.
Give it a go. What out of 10 would you give it then?
Go with a solid 7.
7 out of 10. Right, Maria. The last
Well, that's
book.
because a man called Ove. He's a grumpy man. He lives alone. Then as the story unfolds, we get to know more about why he's so grumpy. And then a new family move in. There's 2 girls that win his heart.
Right, Maria. My last book is A Man Called Ove by Frederick Backman. Have you heard of that?
Yeah, you mentioned it before, I think.
Yeah, so it's about a grumpy old man who, although he's grumpy, he is lovable, but he's totally set in his ways. He's got a short fuse. He kicks cats. He argues about parking costs. He punched a hospital clown because the clown took his coin. Anyway, it's a great story because as the story unfolds, you find out about why he's so sad and angry. And a family with 2 daughters move into the neighbourhood, and they disrupt his life and ultimately save his life in lots of different ways. But I laughed out loud reading this book. I cried reading this book. And that doesn't happen very often when I read a book.
You don't really cry, do you?
That's not true. But
You don't really. You're
not
so...
that often. Anyway, what do you think out of 10?
It's not really my cup of tea.
Is it not?
No. I think it does sound like it would be a good book, but maybe not for me personally.
Okay, so out of 10, what would you give it?
Maybe 5.
5 out of 10. So out of all the books that you rated for me, I think the top one was a solid 8 out of 10.
Yeah, the first one you said, which was the
Agatha Christie one.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so then shall we see if I can get you a copy of that, because I don't know where it's gone.
Sure.
And then you can talk about whether you like it in future episodes. Now, if anybody else has ideas about what a 16-year-old girl might like to read...
leave them below. They're not welcome here. Basically, he's saying I need to read more so that I can pass my higher English.
Well, there is that.
Well,
but
get a good score in it for
reading,
the job I want to.
I just think reading is better than spending time on your phone, but maybe I'm old-fashioned.
If you're looking for a good read for 9 to 14-year-olds, then make sure that you buy...
You've forgotten it.
If you're looking for a good read for 9 to 14-year-olds, make sure you buy Operation Sabre on Amazon for $6.99 or on Kindle for like £3.
$2.99.
So yeah.
Yes, and if anyone's read it, it would really help if you could leave a review. That would be amazing. So thank you, everyone. I hope you enjoyed that more than Maria did. And we'll see you next time. Thanks.
P.S. Promise he's not that uncool.
You don't need to stick your lips out.
He's choking for you all.
Okay, ready? You've lost your sparkle. Don't let anyone take your sparkle, as your sign says in your room.
It's gone for a while now.
Has
Thanks.
it? What did it say?
Don't let anyone dull your sparkle.
Don't let anyone dull your sparkle. I don't think you do let anyone dull your sparkle.
No, I don't.
No.
What?
It's just a really odd thing to do. Don't you think? Do you think it's odd?
No, not at all. It's very normal. Yeah, that's way too embarrassing. Don't. Actually don't.
Maria.
Twitter too,
Maria.
Facebook too.
I forgot to tell you, I was doing this on Facebook Live.
Oh, what? What,
It's
Dad?
just a live stream. So I should have told you, I'm really sorry. So, anyway, people got to see who you are. That's good, isn't it? Hi, everyone. And how many views we've got?
No.
Good.
Okay, so thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time in the Maria and Glenn show. Don't leave suggestions. It's really annoying, really weird. We're not actually that uncool. We don't talk about books all the time and he's not a nerd. Thank you. Goodbye.